Well, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today. The webinar will begin in just a few minutes. So while we wait, if you guys want to tell us where you're from, what kind of weather you're having, we here are in Montreal, north of Montreal, and we're having great weather right now, sunny. And that we got to take advantage of it, Sergio, because apparently it's going to go cloudy for the next few days. So
Apparently, yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Kind of getting tired of the cloud. At least it's getting warmer, sort of. One day yes, one day no.
Yes.
It's always
Today
a
is yes,
surprise.
tomorrow's no.
Oh, a surprise. Yeah. Ah, cool. Let's see. Just give it a minute or a few more minutes and see how many people we can get on board, and then we're going to get started. From Toronto, welcome, Ashley. No idea what the window. I haven't been outside. Yeah, I've got a window, luckily, so I can see what's going on. So, but yeah, sometimes you sit at your desk and you do your work, and you look up and you don't even realize that it was raining or snowing or
Mm.
sunny or whatever. But today, yeah, I looked out the window. Um, All right, I think we're going to get started. So once again, thanks for joining us for our MicroReach Talks Technology webinar. We are continuing our AI series of webinars with today's presentation focusing in on AI readiness and what that means. So my name is Maria Fiore. I'm the Director of Operations here at MicroReach, and my accomplice, Sergio Lima, Director of Customer Success, is joining me today.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Hello, everyone.
So before we get started, we're just going to do a couple of housekeeping notes. So attendees are permitted to reduce the background noise. We encourage questions, so please use the Q&A to ask your questions. Interactivity between you and us and with each other is key to making these webinars a success. So please use the chat to share your thoughts throughout the webinar. The webinar is being recorded. The link to the recording will be sent to everyone within the next 24 hours if all goes well. In the same email, you will also receive a link to download the free ebook we created. We encourage you to take advantage of these resources and share the links with colleagues that may benefit from today's information. Lastly, at the end of the webinar, we have a short 3-question survey to gather your feedback. Please take a moment to share your feedback with us so we can improve our webinars. The AI webinars that we're presenting are a direct result of the responses we received from those surveys, so thank you. All right, so before moving on to the presentation, I'm going to take a moment to give a brief overview of MicroAge. So we are a Canadian technology service provider with 41 locations across Canada. This year, we are proudly celebrating our 45th anniversary. Yes, that's 45 years of providing IT services and solutions to our clients. We have, yeah, imagine. We have always believed in creating partnerships with our clients. That partnership allows us to help you achieve your objectives by understanding your operations, who you serve, how your people work, your challenges, your opportunities, your success metrics, your future plans. All of that helps us to recommend and provide the IT services and solutions that help you get to where you want to go. This is who we are and how we work with our clients. And with that, Sergio, I
Thank
pass
you,
it on to you.
Maria. Yes, thank you. Hello to everyone. We have a lot on our agenda today. I will attempt to keep it within 1 hour. I think we'll be okay. But yeah, we'll start, with a quick poll to see where you're at with regards to AI readiness. And then a brief difference or an explanation of what AI readiness versus what's AI adoption. Those are completely two different things. We will go through a couple of self-assessment checklists for you, as well as the readiness maturity model, which is something that we like to, when we have conversations, we like to gauge what level of maturity you're at so we can help you get to the right level and be prepared for AI implementation. I'll go through the 5 pillars, deep dive into the 5 pillars, what, when you say you're good and you're ready with AI, these are the 5 pillars you have to consider. with a couple examples of some real world scenarios and possible risks when you're not ready and when you don't have all of the right pillars put in place, and then follow it up with closing in the ebook and answer any questions along the way. As Maria said, you can ask the questions anytime in our chat, and we'll address them either during or at the end, but we promise we'll get to them. So why AI readiness matters now? Probably 90% of you are already already have some kind of AI usage within your environment. So it's happening, right? With or without the visibility, there is something with regards to AI that is happening within your environment. Your employees are probably using it in some kind of capacity. But the biggest risk is really the unmanaged usage, or shadow AI, as we like to call it, where it's not the technology itself that's a risk, but your actual users that are using specific tools that could possibly, there's no oversight, and there's possibly security risks and data leakage and compliancy. So the readiness lets teams move faster, obviously, safer in a consistent manner. There is a foundation or a structure that you put in place, and then allows your team to develop, be more productive, and obviously it profits, it benefits the business. And when it's done right, it becomes something that's a productivity lever versus something that becomes a compliancy issue or a security risk, because there were certain things that weren't thought of, and then you kind of left it up to the employees to do. So let's start with a nice poll question on how is AI used today in your business. So do you have approved tools only? Have you determined your list of AI tools and sticking to that? Or do you have a mix of approved tools and then possibly employees using personal and free tools? Are you mostly using free tools, chatbots, browser extensions, some kind of random apps? Or you may not be sure, you have no visibility or very little visibility. You're not sure what's being used. There's no, right or wrong answer. The whole point is really just to quickly measure the room so you can tailor what you emphasize next. I guess, again, there's no right answer. I just want to make sure, I want to take the temperature, right? It's if you pick like not sure, low visibility, it's actually very common. We have a lot of conversations with our customers, and that's where they're at, and that's why we have this webinar. It's to keep you informed and possibly give you the guidance and a roadmap as to what to expect when trying to be ready for AI.
Yeah, so we have a few responses in. We've got about 21% or 20% of the people say they're using approved tools only. It's dropping as more responses come in. So now we're at 18%. There's a mix of approved tools and personal or free tools, about 43%. 12% say they're using, free tools, chatbots, and that kind of stuff. And then there's 25% that say they're not quite sure, they don't have enough visibility. So
It's expected. That's what we thought we'd get as answers. Good.
Yeah, and the other thing to point out too is that in many cases, and again, Sergio, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. Everybody's sort of at the beginning of this is the beginning of of everything. I know we've been talking about AI for 3 years now, and there's more usage, but a lot of that usage is not structured. It's either using free tools or tools that the organization isn't really aware of or isn't tracking and all of that stuff. But everybody's kind of at the beginning of this journey, this AI journey, and learning as we go along. So don't feel left out if you're not at approved tools only, at the top of the rank. It's quite normal in what we see, correct?
And the goal is to define what is AI readiness, or are you really prepared for AI, right? Everybody has their own definition of I'm ready with AI, but the goal of this webinar is specifically that, to give you the guideline, and then you can gauge your own maturity level and then move forward and try and improve on that. So you're probably using some form of AI in this at work, right? Chatbots for writing, summarizing, brainstorming, asking it questions, coming back with answers. I see a lot of meeting notes and transcription and recap tools joining our mess sessions, like Read AI and Firefly and other tools. So that's being used as well. We're using AI for drafting emails, drafting proposals, and scopes of works and all of that stuff. Some of our customers are actually using the data analysis portion where they're looking at, maybe their financing, the accounting department and analyzing a bunch of spreadsheets and looking at, end results with summaries and I guess recommendations that come out of AI. And some of you may have employees or may not know that you have employees that are using browser extensions and plugins. And if you don't know them, then we would call that shadow AI because you're not aware of which tool is being installed and is it safe? Is it what data is it collecting during that that browsing period? The sites that are being visited, the personal information that's being gathered, passwords, security, etc. So that's something again that falls in the shadow AI, and it's something that you want to try and contain and control, and not leave it up to the employee. To say don't do that. Sometimes things get installed without them knowing, so it's not really their fault. It's just up to us and business owners to put the right mechanisms in place so you can control that. So in AI, readiness versus adoption. Being ready means you have control and consistency. So obviously you have to have the policies in place. You have to have trained your employees and all of that. You have to have chosen the right tools or what tools are approved within your business versus the ones that are not allowed. And you got to be able to measure that and monitor it, etc. And then when you're ready, going to the adoption, the training portion is the most important. So yes, you can tell your employees, here's some AI tools, go ahead and have fun. But unfortunately, like every other software and solution you put in place, you have to train your employees to be able to get the most out of that and productivity. And if you're not training them on the latest application you've installed or the latest AI tool that you've installed, maybe they don't know that they can use it in different ways. So the adoption always follows. You can have, you could invest a lot of time and effort and money in being prepared for AI and not train your people, and your adoption will be very low. And then at the end of 12 months, let's say, you realize that you've invested so much of your time and effort in putting this in place, and nobody's taking advantage of it. So you consider it to be not advantageous, a loss, etc. And that's not really good. So you have to train your employees. And the flip side is you may have a lot of employees, gung ho with adoption and using it, but if you're not controlling what they're doing, what data is coming out, if you're not looking at the auditing side, and you're not training them properly, then there's what you see at the bottom is really the high adoption with high risk if there's no controls that are missing. So the goal is really to enable that safe adoption so they become more productive, and not for it to be a liability, but at the same time to have your security measures and guardrails so you can control that. So what does it mean to be AI ready? So you answered that first checklist. Here are the points that you need to look through for you to be able to say that you're AI ready. It's not just technology, it's really strategy, it's people, it's governance, and ongoing oversight. So, the ability to use the AI tools safely, effectively, a clear AI vision that's aligned with business priorities. Don't just give AI tools to your employees without any kind of direction, and hope that they figure out how it could make your business run smoother or more optimized or efficient. You have to
They
start
always
with a
say
vision.
hope is not a
Hope is
strategy.
not a strategy. Yeah, yeah. So and you need the policies and the guardrails. Otherwise, hoping that they do something and then hoping that they don't upload information that is particular and sensitive. You can't really hope. You have to have something that's in place in terms of policies and in terms of technology and solutions in place. And that goes to the technical readiness, right? Your infrastructure, your tools, the access controls, the permissions you give to your users, all of that falls into play with putting the right guardrails in place. And again, I repeat, employee education is very important. One, to reduce the risks, one to give responsibilities, and to at least allow them to use best practices and to help your business. That always starts with the leadership side. So I see a lot of businesses where the employees are effectively using AI, but the leadership is a little slow in embracing it for whatever reason, because they're worried, the risk, etc. But their employees are going at it. Not good, because obviously, there's no control over it. So the goal is really to have leadership in top-down level alignment where leadership has decided we will move forward with AI tools, and that embrace the employees will embrace it because obviously it's a company-wide culture, which leads to the next point. Coming down from the leadership, that also develops that culture of responsibilities. Your employees know what to do. They can experiment with certain things, and at the same time, it's also being monitored and governed by by IT, and make sure that everything is in place. And that's where the monitoring and the oversight comes into play. It's not a set and forget type of solution. You can't just say I'm, you know, prepared for AI and it's in place, and then I walk away and let my employees do what they want. It is an ongoing thing. It's an oversight. It's reviews. It's regularly scheduled reviews to understand, like, how are we using it? Is it actually doing something good? What are the results that we're getting out of it? Is it beneficial? Are there any issues? Are there any risks? And you need to involve several people, obviously, with documentation, compliancy, security, all of that, to make sure that there may be adjustments to make along the way, and maybe change of tools as an option. So there's 5 pillars that we base ourselves on in the foundational requirements to be ready. I will go briefly on all of these 5 and then go in depth in the next slides as we go along. So the first one is strategy and alignment, a clear AI roadmap. You need to go along with some approved AI use cases. Try and define your desired business outcomes. I'll use an example for in our case, anyways, at our location, we have a pre-sales department and a projects department. So the pre-sales department is in charge of creating scopes of works for projects, for migrations, implementations, etc. And in the past, we were building scope of work, and just building that document from scratch, and depending on what the need was. And we're utilizing AI to help us with some of the content within that scope of work. And our goal was to, instead of having, let's say, 5 scopes of work every week being created and delivered and presented to the customers, well, our goal was set to, let's say, 7 or 8 in that week. Can this be done with some AI tools, in the context of maybe giving me the write-ups for the actual migrations, the technical write-ups for my technicians once the project gets approved, the overall summary of what the objectives are of this project. So we use AI in that sense. So for us, it's, build your use cases, strategically ready to use. It's again driven by the strategy, not just by one person wanting to, shave an hour off of their daytime just because they want to get their scope done quickly. That's really not the goal. The goal is at a business level, right? It's not experimentation or hype. It's really focused. So that's more the brainstorming on that AI readiness portion. Then we fall into the policies and compliance. So before you put any of this in place, you need some kind of acceptable use guidance or guidelines, policies. Define what tools are being used, define what you can and cannot enter as data into your AI tools. Again, always in your policies. Make sure they're aligned with any kind of regulatory and compliance. So like PIPEDA for Canada. In some cases, in some provinces, there's PIPA, there's Law 25 in the province of Quebec. So again, document the risks, the mitigation plans, and in the brainstorming portion, again, are we governing AI responsibly, and is it compliant? Is it compliant? And the readiness here means, is it used safely, legally, and defensively? Then we fall to the people. Again, very important, the training portion, the education of your employees. They get trained on, how to do safe prompting, how to detect AI hallucinations with information that is possibly not 100% valid. In that training, there's usually workshops, there's tutorials, they present real life scenarios. You usually have conversations with subject matter experts, people that have been in the business with AI and know, they know your business, they know where you can possibly take advantage of AI. And so the big question here is, are our people prepared to use AI safely and effectively? And here in this case is, are my employees enabled, right? They need to be enabled and not exposed by AI. And that's the biggest goal of it. Why does it always end up the people are the weakest link, right?
Because we're human.
So to prevent the weakest link from doing something that you don't want them to do, you need to make sure you have the right tools and your infrastructure is secure. Okay, so make sure that your tools are secure. Make sure that you have the proper permissions, identity, access, integration, your Microsoft tenant policies and protection, all of that access to the data, block unsafe extensions. You have to depend on tools to do that. Security solutions will help you do that without having to, worry about whether my employee will intentionally or unintentionally, install a browser extension that is possibly not safe for my environment. So in this brainstorming session, you look at, is our technology environment ready for AI, right? The AI tools are secure, they're controlled, and they're integrated. Does that work? And not ad hoc, right? Not people doing whatever they feel like doing, and hope. Again, hope is not a strategy.
And to be fair, most people will start using these tools, and there's, an AI tool every other minute practically.
Yeah.
There's always a new one, and they're using them to just get more productive or get something done, or they're not. I don't. Most people are not doing it on purpose and using tools they shouldn't be using. It's
Hmm.
just they're trying to get their job done, and they found a tool that can help them. That's where it starts, right? That's what
Yep.
causes risk. You're trying to mitigate risk, basically.
Yep. And like every tool or application or solution you put in place, it's not a set and forget. It's a continuous monitoring, continuous improvement. Take a look at the adoption rate. Take a look at the results from some of these use cases that your employees are using. If there are things that don't make sense, if you need to adjust, do the adjustments, update your policies. And like I said, regularly review those, those use cases, the risks, any kind of compliance, things that are out of compliancy. You have to continuously look at that to make sure that, it's not going out of whack. So let's do a quick assessment on a yes, no. There's no poll here. It's just a bunch of line items here that you'll score yourself
Yeah.
with a yes or a no. So let's start with the first one. We have approved AI tools and a clear rule on what data can be used. That's a yes or a no. Next one, we have an acceptable use policy that teams can actually follow. Next one, the teams know how to validate AI output before sharing externally. I'll talk about that after I finish these points. Next thing, I have the proper access controls, right? So single sign-on, SSO, permissions, data protection, all of that infra, tech, IT stuff. Next thing, we can monitor usage patterns and adjust guardrails over time. So I guess continuous improvement, making sure there's an oversight. And lastly, we have at least 1 to 2 defined use cases with owners and success metrics. Again, figure out what your use case is, assign responsibilities, look for metrics, look for results, your KPIs. Did it hit the mark? Are we wasting our time? Should we use it somewhere else? So I'll give you an example on the teams that know how to validate AI output before sharing externally, which kind of also ties in with the, having a couple of use cases with owners and responsibilities. So like I mentioned, we have a pre-sales and projects team. And in the past, we had this team that would build the scopes, and they would validate it amongst themselves because they're, technicians speaking with technicians and then giving the scope of work to the sales team, and the sales team will speak to our customer and present the proposal, and then the project will get implemented. So what we did was we use AI to help us build those scopes, and our clear objective was, number one, if we're doing this many scopes per week, I want to attain this many scopes per week. So I can increase it for number's sake. Let's say we were doing 5. I want to be able to do 7 to 8 scopes per week. So I'm increasing my deliverables, which means I can increase my number of meetings I have with customers, which means that my customers are not waiting for scopes. They're not waiting for projects because I can start doing the projects quicker. So AI allowed us to have certain portions of that scope be to be built by AI, and then we kick in with an oversight. I don't want to call it a committee because it's not really a committee. It's several people that are validating that data. So the pre-sales team will use AI to collect some info, put it in the scope. It then goes to a technical person who is validating that information that is true. It is also then sent to sort of like the oversight, and this is where people validate the actual information. So the legal side, anything with technical side. So there are several people touching this scope, making sure that all of the content is right at different aspects. So, you'll have legal and the financial side and the technical side. So everybody's making sure that that's valid. And only when everyone else gives their stamp of approval, that's when that scope of work gets delivered to, the sales team, and eventually it gets delivered to the client. It seems like more steps than before, but to be honest, it's not, because of the fact that we're using AI to lower the amount of time it takes to create that actual document. And then there's just a little oversight and checking to make sure that everything is okay. And we're just confirming that, the data that is in that document is good. So that's an example of a use case that we've been using. But, depending on your business, you can define, define your objectives for different departments and stick to that. So let's go through that readiness maturity model that I mentioned before. We use a 0 to 4 readiness. You can base yourself on this. You can ask yourself which level you think you're at, whether it's no visibility, unmanaged use, or level 1, which is like basic guidance, informal guardrails. That's kind of, just telling your employees that it's okay to use AI, but not really having the approved tools, not really containing them. There's no training. You maybe told them don't upload sensitive data, but you haven't really established what sensitive data means to them. Then level 2, you're starting to approve, you're starting to train. Level 3, you're starting to govern, the use cases, you're logging, you've contained it with access controls. And the 4th level is, that evolution and continuous improvement as well. Now, to be honest, most organizations that we talk to, they really fall between 0 and 2. Actually more level 1 than anything else, basic guidance with some informal guardrails, and again, assuming that the employee will not harm the company and will not, do something that could jeopardize your reputation or could have security risks, etc. But again, it's the hope. The hope is not the strategy, right? We'll leave a few seconds for that. All right, so let's go deep dive. Pillar 1, strategy and alignment. The goal here is to have clear outcomes, no random experimentation. Exactly what I mentioned to you with regards to our scopes. So, trying to find 3 outcomes. If you feel that 3 is too much, start with 1, and maybe focus it on client experience as an example. So if your goal is to make sure that, you have service people that are interacting with your clients, then maybe you can implement AI somewhere there that, the experience could be much better for your clients. In our case, we used it for productivity and a client experience, I guess, because, we're trying to produce more deliverables in a timely manner, and with the hopes of also giving a better client experience and, quicker response times, quicker project implementation. So we prioritize them based on impact and feasibility. We assigned owners, obviously, and responsibilities to everybody. So we, do this, and obviously come back to me with the results, and start with one workflow and then expand on the results. So we started with that. That's our workflow for scope of work. And Microsoft always says, if you take Copilot, you'll save 25%, 50%, 35% of your time using Copilot. I can't really validate that. We haven't even measured it ourselves, other than the fact that we have our objective. We did get to our objective, but I can't tell you, it saved 25% of their time. Our objective is very difficult to calculate on time. It's easier for us to calculate on deliverables in this case. But yeah,
We're in
go ahead,
early
Marie.
days, right? I mean, we're in early days, so it takes a
Yeah.
bit of time to figure out, what happened. Did it have the impact we wanted? What does that productivity look like? Did it attain the goal, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and we looked at it holistically, obviously. Like if my guy, instead of taking him, let's say, 2 hours to build this scope, it now takes him an hour. Yeah, it saved him an hour of work, right? But if I added 45 minutes worth of validation from three other people, is
Yeah,
it worth that
exactly.
effort, right? So
Exactly.
you have to calculate all of that. And then once, obviously, you have to go into the policy and the compliance. So you don't want to red tape your entire environment and your employees and your whole company with a bunch of policies and compliance and rules, and then obviously that's not good, uh, because your goal is to speed up the adoption and implementation preparedness adoption to make sure that you get faster results, and all at the same time having some kind of guardrails. So um, it always works with publishing some simple rules, sort of like green, red, yellow types of information categories, types of information that you can that you're allowed to upload, and like define what is prohibited, right? Are we allowed to use client details, credentials, contracts, customer info, HR info? You have to define that in your policies, and then also create an escalation path so that your employees are not stuck with making a decision that they shouldn't be making. If it doesn't fall in these categories, then there should be an escalation point that they refer to, and that person will make that decision and say, yes, go for it, or no, don't go for it. Um, and document the minimum review requirements before sending off any kind of content. The best example is what I told you. We expect this from AI. We expect this from our people that are validating before it goes to the customer, and it follows that flow every single time. And keeping with that pillar is really on the data governance. Okay, this is where we fall into the classification. So I mentioned the different color schemes, but the reality is uh, there are settings and parameters and policies you can put in place for your data classification and how sensitive it is. So you can categorize your data, whether it's public, whether it's internal, confidential, restricted. Make sure the rules are set on what you can share and what you can't share, and they kind of all tie in together, like the left items here with the data handling, the encryption, how the data is stored, how the retention happens, the anonymization of that data. It all ties into security controls and policies that you put in place, let's say within your Microsoft tenant, to ensure that you're not relying on your employee to figure that out. You actually have a mechanism. For example, you've created a brand new file, then you should be asked by the systems what type of file this is, right? Is it a restricted file? Is it a confidential file? Is it public information? So you can tag your data, and that way your access controls, which is your third point, is all role based and logging, and it takes that and says, oh, this user is not allowed to be sending confidential data out, or using confidential data in their AI prompts. So it won't allow them to get that done. And that all falls into play. Once you have that in place, then it falls into the compliancy and the auditability, because now you have traceability. What your outputs are. Your outputs. They're verifiable, they're accountable, and they meet regulatory obligations. In case anything were to happen, you at least have something that's documented. And in governed AI use cases, obviously, what's approved versus not approved, what's safe versus what's unsafe in terms of prompts. And we always tell our customers, we like to build prompts that are already prepared, so that we if you understand your use case and the people that will be using it, you can actually create prompts that will help them and not have them recreate that prompt every single time. And again, escalation paths everywhere you go. I didn't mention, but governance is what makes AI safe at the end of all of that. Next pillar, people and training. Again, very important. It's to reduce the human risk through their habits, right? So the education will teach them for safe prompting, will teach them how to anonymize, how to generalize placeholders. It will teach them for validation, verifying the facts, checking calculations, confirming sources. If they're not educated on that, they won't know to look for it. They'll assume that the information they've gathered is correct. So, maybe set a rule for external content, like a human review, like we're doing, similar. So the AI will not replace humans. We still have to be there, before we send our client-facing document. There's still humans and individuals that are looking at that document to make sure that we're conform or compliant. That's the French word, conform. And train on what you do when AI output is wrong and biased. So if the suspicious responses, something that seems biased, again, the training will help with that, and then the escalation path will help the user bring it to the right person, and then move forward or not. And then we follow into the tools and the access controls. So again, you need to define what tools will be approved so you can get rid of. I don't really like the word reduce shadow AI. I'd like to say get rid of shadow AI, because you don't want any AI tools that you're unaware of. You don't want tools that are in there that are not allowed. You need a set list of approved AI tools, a path. This is how we're going to standardize to it. You need to enable your single sign-on, your role-based access wherever possible. You need to have the right security solutions in place to be able to block your browser extensions and unmanaged add-ons. Don't rely on your users or employees to assume that this extension, or make a decision that this extension is safe, or unknowingly install an extension, because a lot of times it gets installed without them knowing. So put the guardrails, put the tools in place so it can get done automatically without having to worry. And very important, keep the sensitive data that is in a controlled environment with clear permission. So all of that has to do with, if you're looking at, let's say, in the Microsoft case with Copilot and M365, there's a whole list of security policies that need to be put in place, and your categorizations and your tagging of your files and all of the permissions that get put in place, so that it alleviates that responsibility, takes away that responsibility from the user, and it puts it in your security systems and solutions that you have in place, so you don't have to worry about it. And the final pillar is the visibility, right? Measurement, iteration, so monitoring and continuous improvement. Never put something in place, as with all applications and solutions. Don't just put it in place and let it be, and never improve on it. You should always be improving on any of your tools. So track the adoption, see how many users. And I didn't mention this, but going back to the being prepared and deciding on what AI tools you want to keep in your environment, have the question with your employees. Like, ask certain specific people that are using AI. Ask them for what tools they're using, and take a look at the results with different employees. You may be surprised. Like, I don't necessarily say, I do say it's a top-down, management ownership has to say, yes, I want to go with AI, but get the feedback from your employees, because a lot of times they're doing stuff that you didn't even know could be done, and they'll help you decide on what tools to use, and then it eventually becomes an approved tool versus something that's unapproved.
And
Review
that's
your
like
yep.
Sorry, I was going to say that's an important point too, is keep those lines of communications open, because, we're talking about reducing or removing a shadow AI, but if you're not open and understanding how your team is working with some of these tools, and you're not open to saying, hey, let's take a look at this, and, asking the hard questions. Okay, so what's the use case here? How much, what are we going to gain in productivity, or
Yeah,
client experience, or whatever it is. But keep those lines of communication. Otherwise, shadow AI will continue to exist, and then, you know,
yep,
risk.
yep,
The whole point is to reduce the risk, right? You can't 100% reduce it, but you can definitely make it so that, you know,
yeah,
your organization isn't too open to some of the security risks and compliancy risks, right?
exactly. Yeah, and I forgot to say that I mentioned our use case, which involves probably five people in every scope delivery. Um, like, you may not have five people to do that, right? You could be a couple of people, like one person who's doing it and the other person who's validating. That's fine, as long as you have that escalation or that validation, that second person that is looking at it to make sure that it's a go. That's good, you know. In our case, we added several entities. Why? Well, we actually had a few goals. The first goal was to have more scopes delivered, to have quicker response, projects delivered quicker. Um, the other goal we had was really to ensure that we did not make any mistakes in our scopes. So I mean, this is for us, for MSP and IT related. Like anybody who's in IT could probably relate to this. But you know, when you deliver a document that says I will do these 3 points, and it's written by one person and maybe validated by that person, but it's not the installer. When that installer goes to do the project, it's like, wait a minute, you forgot about this point. So now we forgot certain points. It wasn't priced right. You know, we said 10 hours and it's 15 hours. So this is a problem. We actually reduced the amount of mistakes we created in our scopes because of AI and all of the checking. So, you know, that helped us at different levels. We noticed that in doing our review of exceptions and incidences, and then we adjusted, and then we realized that, hey, we got like something better, you know, out of what we wanted. We got some a little added extra advantage to that. So create your checkpoints. What's working? What's not? Did you get the results you wanted? And try and measure the time that you saved. In our case, we know exactly what happened. So, you know, I'm sure if you follow it properly, then there's always a way to ensure that you can, you know, you can count and measure it and see if you got the right results out of it. So the key risks of poor AI readiness. The first thing is data exposure, right? So um, client emails, internal documents, confidential data. If you're not tagging them, if they're not categorized, if it's, you know, people can do what they want with that data, there is a likelihood that this data may go out into the public if you're using, specifically if you're using free AI tools, which leads to compliancy or legal action possibly. Again, you know, confidentiality, etc. You could be getting inaccurate or misleading outputs. So nobody's looking at this. Your employee's getting a result and then taking this information and sending it to the customer. You know, fake citations, etc., information that is really not accurate. Again, if there's no oversight, if there's nobody validating that information, um, then there's you know, there's a chance that you might get false information. You don't want shadow AI adoption. So obviously, you don't want your employees to be installing unapproved tools like the plugins and the bots and the extensions without being visible. So whether you're stopping them at the source or you have some kind of mechanism that is alerting you when an extension is being installed, you have to have something. I mean, I prefer blocking it right off the bat. If you set your approved, you know, tools and block everything else, you should be okay. But in some cases, if you don't have that security solution in place, then at least have something that can advise you that there are extensions that are being installed in the browsers. Um, and the operational inconsistency, like teams use AI differently, right? So it results in inconsistent proposals, documents. That's why we try and standardize and have a goal with these are my use cases. This is how I'm going to use it. Create your prompts. This is how you should be creating the scope in this manner all the time. This is the prompt you need to ask. So, you know, otherwise we get different, you get different. And we've tested this, like you can ask 3 different AI tools the same question and sometimes you get different answers. A little bit of that. That's usually what happens, right? There's an inconsistency. It's just a matter of picking, validating to make sure which is the right one, and moving forward with it. So a couple of scenarios, like let's use the helpful employee, right, who wants to reply properly to a client email. So he'll take an email that receives from a client, he'll copy paste it into a free AI tool, draft a reply. Um, so essentially, the sensitive details could possibly leave out of your control if you're not looking at this, and then could possibly be stored outside of your environment. So the risk there is really the confidentiality portion, the compliancy exposure, possible reputational impacts. This information may be out there. We did get a question on the other webinar with concerning this. You know, can I copy paste this just the text itself from an email? Um, Not 100% sure, but there could be a chance that there's some backend code that is still there that identifies this information, the source and all of that stuff. So if you're dealing with free AI tools, I don't recommend that. I probably would recommend something like opening Notepad and just doing a copy paste there, where it converts it to plain text, and then you can copy paste it and gets rid of all the coding. Other than that, you know, switch to the pay version of your AI tools, which usually has some kind of more regulatory and more security, and then has their what's that again? What's that? Why do I keep forgetting this, Maria? It's their liability and their
Oh,
security
they're right, terms of use, right?
terms of use. Yes, that's right. And what happens to that data? If you're paying for this, let's say Chat GPT, you're paying for the pro per the pay version. They have their set guidance. This is what it is in terms of you inputting data. I will store your data here. It will not be shared with other entities. Make sure you have make sure you have that in your
Yeah.
tools, so that you know what's going on. And if you don't and have to use the free AI tools, then you need to have some kind of process that says you can't just simply copy paste the document. You need to do these 3 steps before inputting that info.
Yeah, so that code you mentioned in the background, also any information that can identify is confidential, is sensitive, any of that, you have to anonymize that, right? You have to
Right.
not
Yeah.
not, put the person's name or the
Yes.
person, if the problem is very specific or if the idea is very specific or whatever it is you're putting in there, like you
Hmm.
got to make it so it's anonymized
Yeah.
as much as possible.
Yeah. All right. Scenario 2, we have a confident but wrong output. So AI will draft a policy or a proposal or a recommendation, and then there's possibly some incorrect claims, some hallucination, and then it gets shared internally, and then possibly gets forwarded to a customer eventually. So again, without that validation, making sure that the information you got from your AI tool is valid. It could be a bad decision, it could be a legal exposure, it could be loss of trust. And again, that validation checklist, whether it's a list itself or an actual process that says it will go to this person before it gets sent out, make sure that something is in place to ensure that. Scenario 3 is a shadow AI via extension. So I did mention this before. A browser extension that captures page. So you have browser extensions that you can use to like go on a website. It'll canvas the entire website, come back to you with keywords or a summary of what's going on because the website's too big and you want it done in within 30 seconds. Cool. But you have to be careful with the extensions because sometimes they have a habit of capturing a lot more than just the actual website itself. They'll capture what you're doing, the keystrokes. If there's a login page with a portal and you have access, they'll be collecting that information. So again, without visibility, without the data handling, if it's not clear, it is very difficult. It's uncontrolled, and you have no idea where that data is being stored or sold, because in some cases it's actually being sold. So again, manage your browser controls, do your block lists, and approve, your approved tool or alternatives. There's many ways to get this done, and I can't tell you how because we'll do it in the next webinar. So that's the trailer for the next webinar. But there's many ways to get it done. The only answer I can give you is speak to your local microage location, and they will help you. So in summary, the best practices for building AI readiness is really start small, very responsibly, pilot one team, one person, one process. Um, get your approved AI list. Decide these are the tools or this is the tool I'm going to use. Try and reduce those free tool usages. Nothing is good when it's free. Sorry, that's
Well, what's
it's
the
never
thing
good
is
when it's
that
free.
if it's free, you're the product,
Yeah, that's right. If it's free, you're the product. Your data is the product.
your data is a product.
Develop the clear AI usage policies. So, what is acceptable versus what is prohibited? Develop your escalation paths in case there are any questions. Train your employees continuously, very important. Show them how to, while the training will show them how to do safe prompting, how to validate outputs, how to protect and anonymize sensitive data. That in that training, that's how they learn to, be your frontline support, right? And not your weakest link. And obviously you have no choice. You have to do some kind of oversight and logging and tracking and making sure your policies are up to date. In doing all of that, it will foster a culture of responsibility or responsible experimentation. It will actually help your employees get better, and essentially your business becomes more efficient and gets to the goals that you want to be there. So in terms of innovation, et cetera, that's why we write down
All
innovation
those
with guardrails.
all those fun things that they all promise us, right?
Yes, of course. They just didn't tell you that you needed 5 pillars to get it done.
Well, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Um,
So I will pass this back to you, Maria. I don't know if we have
yep.
any questions.
Yeah, if you can go in the chat, there's a couple of comments, but also a couple of questions if you want to read them through. And then I'm just going to go and tell everybody. Patrick, who we forgot to introduce, is in the background. He's going to put the link to the guide in the chat, so you have it, and you don't have to furiously write it. We will also, like I mentioned, can be sending an email out to everybody with this link. So this is the guide. It's a little bit longer than we normally make it. That's because we've attached some appendix. So from the last two webinars that we had on AI, a lot of people were asking, okay, but can you give me an example of what an AI usage policy looks like? And so
Mhm.
we've given an example. It's a sample. It's you know you have to work it up for your own organization. You have to validate and do all those things, but at least it gives you a little bit of what a policy should look like. And so, yeah, if please go ahead and download the guide, share the link with any of your colleagues that you think would benefit from learning more about what we talked about today. So, Sergio, yeah, there's a couple of, like I said, a couple of questions. One
Okay,
from
so we
Ashley.
have, yes, we have Ashley. It's she said, I know that in many generative AI tools, there are settings that allow you to turn off using your prompts and outputs for training in AI externally. But I've also heard that the companies can still store and access your information for their own purposes, such as information informing product development. Are you able to speak any more of this on this idea? I suppose the key idea is not to be fooled that your info is confidential just because the setting is applied. I think I understand the question, and it's a little bit with regards to like the free AI tools. Um, in when using the free AI tools, and I'm not going to point the finger at, let's say, ChatGPT, but there are different versions of ChatGPT, and there are different policies that they have put in place with respect to the versions that you have. So if you're using the free, there is a set policy that they've defined that says they may use this your prompts and outputs in their, I guess, rebuilding of their AI tool and evolution of their tool to make it better. So there is a chance that this data, they don't tell you, but there is a chance that this data could be used there and elsewhere, versus using something that is paid where it's actually defined and says, when you enter this data or your files, I will store it securely in this data center. It will not be used for their machine learning code, and it will not be shared with other inputs and outputs elsewhere from other people. So you have to, there's a bit of homework to do in some of these tools to make sure that you have the right one. So I can't answer for all of them because they're all different in their own way.
Yeah. But whatever you engage in, make sure you understand their usage policies and how they're using your data. And you were talking about ChatGPT. I have a free version that I use for, you know, checking recipes or whatever. And I got a notice today that they're changing their privacy terms because now they're going to include ads. What they say is they anonymize any of my information and they're just
Yeah.
providing information as to this person asked about, I don't know, dishwashers or something like
Right.
that. Or not this person, but somebody asked, or 95% of the people that are using are asking about dishwashers. So this is how, so the free version is going to have ads if it doesn't already. I don't even know. I haven't been there for a while. But plus now they're changing their policies. So you got to stay on top of that. Whoever you engage in, it doesn't matter who you engage in. You need to understand their policies, free versus the pro version, the business version, the enterprise version. They all have different terms. So
Yep, exactly. Okay, next one. Well, Adam, thank you. Adam said that's a very good point about the background code in a copy paste, and he also said that would be the same as the EXIF information in a photo, right? That identifies the code that's pasted
it's
in
true.
the tool, and it potentially tells you the exact spot of where you took that photo. Yep, cool.
Yeah.
Google has included a Gemini button in the latest versions of Google Chrome to read websites. It's built in and not an extension. Correct. I would
Yeah.
assume that Google has some good security policies in place. So it's, oh, you put it in your list, make sure IT runs the tests to make sure. And, you know, I'm skeptical of all extensions, but, you know,
Yeah.
if it's Google, it's better than something that's random.
Yeah. So that's what it
Danielle,
shows.
how was your experience with Claude? That is what we're currently using. I haven't personally used Claude. I know some customers that have used it. They haven't said anything negative about it. So it's working. And I mean, it's, whatever your preference is, right? We have customers that don't want Copilot, so they're going ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini. It's really your preference. It's probably the same question as asking me, I like Cisco firewalls. Honestly, I do them all, right? I do Cisco, I do WatchGuard, I do Fortinet. It depends on the environment, and it depends on if there's good adoption and you get good results. That's perfect. I think that's it. We didn't have any other questions. Yeah, that's it.
No. We do have a few minutes, so if you think of anything else, please, let us know. But otherwise, let's see here. Well, we talked about the ebook. Okay, so if there's no other questions, then thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you found today's webinar of value. We encourage you to, again, download the ebook and reach out to your local microage with any questions. We will be back on May 7th with the next webinar, where we will dig a little deeper on the very important aspect of AI readiness, your data, specifically data governance and security. So what Sergio was alluding to is that's going to be the next webinar we're going to give on May 7th.
Yep.
So look for the invites in your emails and on social media. We'll have those out shortly.
Yep.
And then I think there's a couple of there's another question from Ross involving data. If you want to.
Ross has an excellent question. He's going to have to wait until the next webinar. What safeguards involving data are required with Copilot? We're going into that on the next webinar. We're doing security policies. We're actually, yeah, it's specific to that. The security policies, the controls, the monitoring, the categorization, the tagging, all of that. Yes.
And we decided to focus in on this particular part of the framework because it's a process.
Yeah.
Right. Like Sergio, you having been through it a little bit, you understand. It's a process, and it's something that is important to the whole, to the whole success of adopting and AI properly. So yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Yep.
And I guess with that,
but I mean, Ross, you don't have to wait until next webinar. If you speak to your local microage, I'm sure you can have a good conversation with them. They can help you that really fast.
Start that. That's
as a
true.
start.
That's true. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, we're not. It's like a TV show.
Well, we won't leave them hanging for the next 30 days or
No,
so.
no, that's not fun. Anyway, with all of that, we want to thank you all for spending time with us today. We know everybody's busy and the days go quickly, and so we really appreciate the time that you spent with us. Sergio, thank you again. And have a great rest of the day, and don't forget to give us your feedback, please. You noticed that we put the survey link in the chat that Patrick did, so please give us your feedback. As I said, it feeds our webinars and the topics that we talk about, so it's really important to us. So again, thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone.